What is going on, young world? It's your boy Sogi Kami, and I'm talking about One Piece chapter 1095, alright? We are here, alright? This is the point that I've been waiting for a long time. It's about that time where we start talking about the rocks, the Zebek stuff, the God Valley stuff. The incident is upon us, and it's all coming through with that flashback from Kuma. So I'm very excited to see what's going on next. One Piece is in just like peak position right now, and we do have a break this week, but I'm gonna be looking into getting some videos, talking to some people, just reaction from the chapter, thoughts moving forward about things that could happen. Very, very excited about One Piece as a whole, where we're at right now, and all the future things coming out. A lot of theories, a lot of ideas. One Piece is just in such a great position. Let me talk about the chapter. This is going to be one of those videos where I don't think I'm going to go through the chapter kind of like page by page and talk about things I think about. I'm going to really be going over the ideas and the things that stand out to me about this chapter and how it relates to the arc as a whole, because I feel like everything we've seen, stuff with Garp moving to the future, stuff with Dragon moving to the future, Kuma, Ivankov, these are the important characters. Even Crocodile, Kaido, these are all the characters who are like big. Whitebeard, these are the characters that are going to be making influence, especially when it comes to this flashback. So the chapter 1095 is called A World Where You're Better Off Dead. I think the other scans had it called A World That's Not Worth Living In, something like that. I also want to point out that this chapter had Buggy as somebody who's on the cover page. Previously, I always thought that Shanks was a celestial dragon, especially from the Figureland stuff. But I also was in the mindset that Buggy could also be a celestial dragon. We know that they're found around the same time, so having Buggy in this chapter kind of made me think that could Buggy potentially also be a celestial dragon. Buggy has blue hair. The only other blue-haired character in the series that comes to my mind right now is Vivi, who we know has that celestial dragon blood too, and she could potentially be involved in something. I wouldn't say God Valley, but you know, the Void Century, those times. So Buggy and Vivi having that kind of connection is interesting to me. I would say that Shanks more relates to the Figureland, while Buggy could relate more to one of like the families of, you know, the 20 families. Just getting into it, the first half of the chapter was exciting. You know, we got to the end of the Kizaru versus Luffy stuff. I would say that if Luffy wasn't kind of caught up by Saturn at this point, it would have been more like a victory for Luffy, because I feel like Luffy would have been able to get up before Kizaru could have gotten up. And I feel like kind of there's kind of more there for like the Straw Hat team, so Saturn kind of turned the point on it. But Luffy only landed one punch and it knocked off Kizaru, and Kizaru was he was able to talk, but he wasn't able to move. And I feel like Luffy would have been able to get up first just because he had kind of, you know, he has that dog in him, but Oda kind of decided he wanted to have Luffy down and out for the moment. And then there's a moment where, you know, Saturn goes for the kill on Luffy, and then we see Frankie kind of punch him and then catch Luffy back. So I thought that was sick. Frankie, you know, coming super clutch in this arc, and this is going to be an arc that's, you know, focused on Kuma, so hopefully we'll get some cool Frankie stuff. I think it was Randy Troy kind of mentioned that all the characters who went down to go save Bonnie, right, they're all kind of science related in a way. You know, Atlas seems to be just a robot, you know, Frankie is a part cyborg, and Sanji is basically a cyborg too. So all these characters are all science related. I wonder if this is going to be something that's mentioned, what these characters are going to do moving forward. Frankie's always somebody who's saving people. I think you know, Frankie's really good at that role, and I like the way that Saturn kind of bigged up Frankie, saying like, oh, you know, you're competent. You know, all this is what the Straw Hat Crew is all about, like relying on each other and stuff like that. So yeah, Saturn is huge. I didn't even really scale how big he was, but he's like several times bigger than Atlas. Atlas is already huge, so I thought that was really cool too. In terms of Saturn's powers, I think it's kind of interesting that Saturn has a power that could kind of hold people down. It's like a kind of a gravity thing. I wonder if that's hockey based or if that's Devil Fruit. But Vegapunk mentions, oh, like this has to be a devil fruit that's doing it, but they're not really explaining it. Saturn's not in a position where he's talking about exactly what devil fruit he's eaten, so I wonder what this pack could be. A lot of people are saying it's like a base devil thing, so it's like Saturn hasn't even eaten a devil fruit, he just has powers from the devil. So that could be something that we're going to get more info in this arc moving forward about, like just the origins of devil fruits. And one thing that's really important that I want to talk about is the devil fruits that are going to be given out in this arc, especially in God Valley. I'll get into this more later, but there's a panel where we see a bunch of chests, and those chests kind of look like the chests that they found the Gomu Gomu no Mi in. So that's just interesting to me, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, going into the flashback, there basically is a moment where Saturn is in a position to kill Bonnie, and Bonnie thinks to herself like, oh, a conversation between her and Kuma. Kuma brings up the fact that Nika is like a hero that he kind of wanted to be like. He always tried to be like him, and it's funny because Kuma kind of came off as just like a really quiet guy, so maybe that was after his cyborg transition. But in the past, you see him dancing with Bonnie. We see that little panel, and he tells Bonnie, you know, like, I want to be like Nika. And Bonnie asks him, will Nika save me? And then he says, for sure. So that's kind of like a hint that Luffy's going to be getting up, and that could be the giant robot coming too. There could be a bunch of different things that happen in this arc, and I'm just super curious as to where this is going to be leading. From this moment, we see the flashback, and this flashback really, really tug at my heart, and it's so sad. Like, we see from the moment that Kuma is born, basically the Celestial Dragon's coming at him and his family. His family gets put into slavery for being part of this Buccaneer race, which it seems to be like humans with the blood of giants. I think that the Buccaneers could have potentially been what Joy Boy is. We can also see that in Bonnie's distorted future kind of move, where you see Bonnie with like that kind of Kuma shaped body. So that could kind of hint that, you know, that could have been one of her futures, and she has like the strength of some giants in her. Maybe that's why she's so gluttonous. And and she's basically 25% Buccaneer at that point, because Kuma is half Buccaneer, right? Only the father was Buccaneer. So that's interesting too. I think that the Buccaneer race is going to definitely get some light shed on them. I wonder if they're going to be related to the Lunarians in any way, if we're going to get any more Lunarian information in this arc. We did get to see some, you know, the Seraphim Lunarians, right? So I wonder if the Lunarians are going to be in any way related to God's Valley. And as this arc, as this chapter keeps going on, as we see Kuma's life, kind of how it was growing up as a slave, we get kind of context for what we saw previously with Kuma crying and people beating him up. That was Kuma basically running away from the going to this God Valley tournament that they're having, and they basically sent slaves to get him back, because if the slaves never got him back, all those slaves would have been killed. So it was like, get Kuma and have a chance at living, or go to your death at this point. And Kuma heard from stories from his father about Nika coming to save him. Kuma's mom passed away while being a slave, and Kuma was, you know, working for another slave master. And Kuma's dad basically said, oh, she's going to be in a better place now, because like living as a slave is hell. And that's just so sad, because Kuma didn't even get a full life with his family, you know. Just being alive as a slave has been so awful. And as Kuma's father is telling him about Nika, he literally gets his brain blown out by a freaking Celestial Dragon. You know, Oda's really been going out of his way to make sure these Celestial Dragons are seen as the scum of the earth, and they're honestly the worst people. The worst people. The chapter cuts over to God Valley, and they tell you that God Valley is called that because they have materials in this country that is definitely looked for by the world. So you can probably assume it's like sea stone and stuff like that, maybe like strong wood and stuff that you can find in those giant mountain peaks. They decide that they're going to have like this every 3 years. They have these human hunting tournaments, and they get points for it, right? And it's part of like their ritual to, like, you know, control human population. And in this tournament, you see one of the Celestial Dragons who's like announcing things. He is standing in front of 6 chests, right? And as I mentioned, those chests kind of look like the chest that you found the Gomu Gomu no Mi in. So it's potentially like chests all have devil fruits in it. And we know for a fact that at God Valley, Big Mom was the one who gave Kaido his devil fruit. So at this point, we see a young version of Garling. We see the king of God Valley, and he's fighting for his people, saying, hey, you guys can't just do that. And then we see a young version of Garling, and he kills the king, right? And then they basically say, oh, you start off at minus 10,000 points. And then Garling says, oh, of course, that's fine. You know, I need this handicap so that, you know, it'll be more of a challenge for me. And I thought that was crazy, because when you look at young Garling, he looks exactly like Shanks. So just the Garling Shanks father stocks going way up. As the chapter comes to a close, we see that you know, Kuma is being brought back by the slaves. Out of nowhere, Ivankov and a woman named Ginny are there in their young forms, and they're basically, Ivankov is giving some like sick Joy Boy energy, saying like, oh, you know, like, why your face is so glum, like, I'm gonna show you guys I want to live, that kind of thing. So Ivankov is shown as a slave. Ginny is also a slave, and Ginny mentioned that Ivankov is her brother. Now, that's how the chapter ends, and obviously there's a break next week, but I found that was so interesting, like seeing this Ginny character, because she looks exactly like Bonnie, and Bonnie saw this flashback, so Bonnie would know that that was her mother. We see her eating meat. Bonnie is a character who we've seen eats a lot, so we know that there's some type of relation there. We see the freckles. She just looks like Bonnie to me, so I think I'm going to assume that that's Bonnie's mom, making Ivankov Bonnie's auntie, and that would make Kuma and Ginny, you know, like lovers in a sense. So you kind of have like some death flags, you know, with One Piece. It's always like a one parent rule, so you know something bad's about to happen to Ginny, and that makes you feel even more for Kuma. I don't want anything bad to happen in this arc. I want him and Bonnie to get back together. I feel like there are a lot of different ideas that we could have had, like Law's devil fruit inside one of the treasure chests, as it's like really rare. Blackbeard, definitely Kaido's. We don't know if Whitebeard had his devil fruit before this moment in God Valley, right? So it's possible that Whitebeard came here with rocks and he got his devil fruit from that one of those treasure chests. Ivankov doesn't seem to be somebody with a devil fruit at this moment, so he could have gotten one of his devil fruits from one of the treasure chests as well. Kuma's devil fruit could have came from one of the treasure chests, and I am kind of thinking that we could see Crocodile in this arc, because we know that Crocodile and Ivankov have some type of history, right? Where Crocodile could have gotten his power from, it could have been one of these chests as well. And Crocodile and Ivankov there could have been plenty of things. One theory that came up in my mind is that everybody knew that Crocodile was a slave, so Ivankov used the hormone fruit, changed Crocodile from a woman to a man, and basically that's how he's been able to hide himself. One other thing that I think is important to note is that it's confirmed that Shanks was found in a treasure chest, right? So in one of these treasure chests, Shanks could have been there as well. And we know Shanks doesn't have a devil fruit, so it's not like he ate one. So these treasure chests could have also had people in them, potentially. And when Roger opened the treasure chest, there was no devil fruit in there. So it's possible that, you know, the devil fruit and the child could have been replaced with one another. I don't know how Shanks would have gotten to one of those treasure chests from beforehand, so someone would have to have put him in there at some point. So I definitely think that that's a potential option that we can't just overlook at this time. Another thing that's important to note is that when Whitebeard was talking to Shanks, he says, looking at your face makes my scars itch. And so we kind of get confirmed, right? We see Garling at God Valley. And then we know that Whitebeard goes to God Valley, so we know that there's going to be a Prime Whitebeard and a Garling fight. So I don't know if that means that Garling beat Whitebeard, Garling is stronger than Prime Whitebeard, or maybe Whitebeard when he first gets his devil fruit. But that's interesting to me that it's kind of confirmed now that when he was looking at Shanks' face, he was thinking about Garling, and that's hinted at us from so long ago. So that's like big ups to Oda on that one. That was just a really nice touch, seeing young Garling and then immediately being able to put that together. Like, damn, that's why Whitebeard was kind of feeling that pressure when he was looking at Shanks. He was like, oh, you know, just looking at your face, I hate you. So it's super interesting. And that also goes into why when they're looking at you know, things like Marineford, when Shanks shows up, they're like, damn, you know, you got that celestial dragon blood in you. The last thing I want to talk about is kind of Dragon and how he fits into this. We know that in this arc so far, we've seen that Dragon had played a pretty pivotal role, especially with all the Kuma stuff. 22 years ago, before the Ohara flashback, we know that Dragon was a freedom fighter. So I feel like this God Valley arc has been something that kind of pushed Dragon and changed his view. I am expecting us to see a young version of Dragon at 16, 17 years old. That's how old he would have been at the time. Maybe as like an up-and-coming Marine. And he sees the things that have happened to the people and he kind of gets disillusioned with the ideas of the Marines at this point, and that's how he turns out to become a freedom fighter. This could also be where he meets Ivankov and he meets Kuma, and he's the person who saves them. This could be a call to Kobe, as Kobe has been somebody who has like a similar I need to save people type thing, and this could also be why they say that Dragon hates fighting. He's like hates war because he's seen just kind of the worst out of people, you know? I didn't mention it before, but this could also be where Dragon got his devil fruit, because his devil fruit is really powerful as well. During Ohara, it is said that Dragon was just a freedom fighter, but within a year of seeing the Ohara incident, Ivankov and Kuma, Dragon came together to start the Revolutionary Army. So it's possible that after seeing God Valley, everyone went their separate ways, but after the stuff in Ohara, Dragon brought everyone back together and said, we can't let something like this happen again. Also, I want to point out that when Sabo was pinned for the murder of the King of Alabasta, Dragon was saying that he would never forgive Sabo for doing something like that. So I feel like Dragon himself kind of, even though he has his own ways of doing things, he just doesn't believe in killing royalty, killing people who may deserve it. He's just really against that kind of thing. So I think that we're getting kind of fleshed out idea of what's going on with Dragon and his thoughts and where he's going to go from here. So I think Dragon is going to be a major player in this God Valley flashback that we're getting right now. Anyway, a lot of ideas floating through my head. One Piece this is like one of my favorite chapters just because of just information. This is the type of flashback that I've been waiting for since Wano, since we got Kaido's flashback. I wanted to know what happened at God Valley. I can't wait to see Big Mom. I hope that we see some of her powers and we can get a hint of what happened with Kaido, just the whole thing. I don't know if it's just going to be Kuma's perspective, but I hope that we get everything, because, you know, even in the flashback, we're seeing stuff with Garling and stuff like that. So I want to see Rocks. Hopefully, maybe in the next chapter, chapter 1100, we get to see the Rocks in full body, kind of get that face reveal. To me, I wouldn't say this is impossible, but I feel like Rocks and Dragon look kind of similar to one another, especially when you look at certain panels, just kind of like the way that their hair kind of is like receding in a certain way. So I want to know what kind of relationship if Rocks and Dragon have together, you know, just interesting in general where these things can lead. I don't think that, you know, Dragon is related to Rocks, but I just feel like they kind of have like similar hair and stuff like that. So it could be anything, but yeah, my mind is racing. I have so many thoughts. I just really want to know more. We have another break week coming up. Let me know what you guys thought about this chapter. Like, subscribe. Let me know your lives in the comments down below. And have a nice day. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.